Hello Dave is brought to you ad-free by my supporters on Patreon. Become a Patreon yourself and get your name listed as a supporter at the end of every video by following the link in the video description. Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Hello Dave with Down to Earth Astronomy. It's once again Monday, and that of course means that we're gonna see what's been going on. Well, but maybe... Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Hello Dave with Down to Earth Astronomy. It's once again Monday. At least I hope that it's Monday, because I'm not 100% sure if this video is going to make it out for its usual time slot, but I'll go back and explain all that a little bit later on in the video. So for now, let's just go ahead and let's have a look at what has been going on in the league. Now, what I think has been the most interesting, most noticeable thing this week is the announcement of a new round of focus feedbacks. Now, if you don't know, Frontier had in the past done these focus feedbacks where they have a dedicated forum where they are going to explain what they're going to implement in the future and how they want it to work. They started out with the new crime and punishment system. So they're going to put that out and then they're just going to open it up for discussion. So they're basically taking feedback from players before they actually implement something. Something they started and something that I'm glad to see are returning. And they've announced a new series of these focus feedbacks, and they'll be coming out over the next about a month or so. The first one's gonna be on the 8th of May. That is Tuesday. So if this video is out on its usual slot on Monday, then it will be tomorrow. And that's gonna be discussions on the Squadron update. That's the update for Q4. Most of this, I think, is Q4 stuff. I'm not actually sure, but at least the Squadron update is planned for Q4, and they are probably going to go in and explain how they expect the Squadrons to work and the mega ships as well. So it's going to be a very interesting read. Now, it's important to keep in mind that just because they've put it out on a forum like that, it doesn't mean that's the final version. I mean, the whole point of it is, of course, to take feedback and change it. So this is a good chance for you to go ahead and get your word in and get some influence in what this is going to look like. I'll put a link for the forum and you can go and you can follow up. But as I said, on the 8th of May, the discussion is going to be on the Squadron update. So yeah, Squadrons and probably mega ships as well, or fleet carriers or whatever they're called. I think fleet carriers is what they're going for. That's going to last for 20 days. And then on the 28th of May, they're going to go over and discuss mining, something that I am very much looking forward to. And yeah, that's okay. So that's gonna come out. Sorry, that's gonna come out in 20 days. And on the 18th of June, they're gonna talk about changes to exploration and the new codex. Now, if you're not aware, codex is a kind of a log where you get a overview of what you found, and they say it's also gonna be giving hints towards new things you can find related to what you've already found. Now, exactly how that's going to play out, of course, we don't know. We'll have to wait till the 18th of June to find that out. But I think it's interesting that implementing a log like this, especially the part with the hints. I don't know if that's because there are a lot of stuff in the game that we just haven't discovered and Frontier's getting impatient with us finding it. So they want to try and have a way to like pitch us small hints, which is great. And hopefully it's going to give the game a little bit more depth, which is something that it has been... people have been complaining a lot about, that the game has, I mean, it's a huge ocean, but it's inch deep. But if you could have like something, you discover something which leads to something else, which leads to something else, you could go on like down a whole rabbit hole discovering things. That would be absolutely great if it's something like that. What I fear is it's just going to be some kind of achievement system. I really don't hope that's the case, where you can see, oh, you unlocked, you found this many water worlds, this many Earth-like planets, and you have visited these many tourist beacons. I hope it's not just going to be something like that, because it's going to be, I mean, it's going to be, yeah, it's going to be fun. You can share it with your friends, see, look how many whatever I have discovered. But other than that, I don't think that would add a lot to the game. So I hope that it's going to have some actual gameplay around it. It's going to help explorers like go out and find new stuff and new interesting things, because that's always fun. But again, we'll have to wait for the 18th of June to find out what that is all about. So yeah, that's it. And then of course, the whole player faction thing has been going on this week. I have a few videos planned about all that, player faction and what's going on in background simulation. I was thinking of doing something like I think I mentioned this before, doing some kind of like background simulation school kind of thing as I learn, because I've been reading up on it a lot lately. I'll probably post videos about it, and they will be out over the next coming month, I guess, as I learn. But let's talk about why this video might be delayed this week. Because on Friday I had a deadline for a video that's going up, not going public, but getting ready to send it over to a review. It's a game review. I'm reviewing a new game that's coming out, and the deadline was on Friday. This is currently Saturday, so the day after. And that video would not render. Whatever I did, that thing would just not render. I mean, if you're not familiar with video editing, rendering is the process where you take all your footage and you've been editing it and cutting it together. And when you start that final process, that computes the final video, that creates the final video. That's the rendering process. A process that often is very, very CPU intensive and often takes a very long time. So it puts a lot of strain on your system, and you should not expect your system to be doing anything serious while doing it. I mean, you can play non-CPU intensive games for sure. You can browse Facebook, YouTube, stuff like that. But other than that, you probably shouldn't be expecting a lot of performance to come out of your system while you're rendering. And so what was happening was I would start the whole rendering process, and then about after half an hour, 20 minutes, half an hour, it would either I would get a hard crash, blue screen, dump the memory to disk, and just shut off, which was the worst that happened. And sometimes the program would just freeze, and I mean, everything else was working fine, computer's still running, but the rendering software just stopped, and I had to go into my task manager and kill the process and then start all over again. And I tried that, I don't know how many times, at least 10 times before I realized, okay, this is not gonna happen, because it's not uncommon that you get rendering issues, especially when you're pressing your system this hard over an extended period of time. So it's not uncommon that you, from time to time, get rendering issues and stuff crashes. So I just thought, okay, we'll give it another go again, see what happens. But it just wouldn't render. So my first thought was, okay, so why is it crashing after like 20 minutes? It always varied a bit. Sometimes it was 20 minutes, something it was half an hour. So my initial thought was, this is something to do with thermals. That would also explain the blue screen that I was gaining from time to time. And because if CPU got too hot, the system would go into emergency shutdown to try and prevent hardware damage. So my first thought was, okay, maybe I have a bad cooler. So I fired up my monitoring software, kept an eye on my CPU temps, fired off the render process again, and temperatures immediately shot up quite quickly, as they do when you begin to put a lot of load on, and they settled in after 15 to 20 minutes. They settled in around the 80 degrees C, which is toasty for a CPU, especially an Intel CPU. It is definitely on the hot side, so I might have to look into my cooling solution. But it's not that, I mean, it shouldn't be that critical that I would get a crash like that, I think. But I thought, okay, maybe I should try to just dial back my overclock. So I back into BIOS, I removed the overclock completely, and that didn't do anything. Then it still crashed, and I decided, okay, let's just reapply the overclock, because that obviously wasn't the case. I mean, I lost a bit of the thermal, so my heat was a little bit better, but it still crashed. So I thought, okay, I'll just reapply the overclock, not as aggressive as it was before. So I went from a 4.5 gigahertz at 1.35 volts down to, I think I'm currently running on 1.275 volts and 4.3 gigahertz, and it's Intel 6700K. So it's not an aggressive overclock for the CPU. But I dialed that back, and again, thermals was better, but still crashed. And that really, really puzzled me. And I was about ready to just go ahead, buy a new cooler, new CPU, new motherboard, just to get this thing working. Of course, that would delay me a few days until that arrived. So then I began to think, okay, what have I done? What have changed? Normally when I render off my server. I have a server standing on top of a closet somewhere in the other end of the apartment. And normally I would just render straight off that. And I've tested it before when I did it, because I know render off a server, so you pull directly over the local network. Is that an issue in terms of delay and response time? So I've tested this before, where I would render directly off my SSD. But because my system has enough memory to hold everything, it would just like load everything into memory. Once everything was loaded into memory, it was just render off that. So because my projects are smaller than my memory size, it wasn't really an issue rendering from the server. I would always render to my local disk and then transfer it over to the server when the render was done. But again, but I did try to then move everything locally, put it down on the SSD, and then render from that. And same results, still crashed. Render times was pretty much identical. So I was really puzzled. So I began to think, what have I changed? What have changed lately? And the only thing I recall was I was playing around with the settings, trying to get CUDA acceleration to work on my rendering process. So using offloading some of the work from my CPU over to my graphics card. Now it didn't work. Apparently there's a bug in the version of Movie Studio that I use, so CUDA acceleration, it says it's available, but it doesn't work. At least it's putting zero load on my graphics card, and rendering time are exactly the same. So I thought, wait, I actually did set it up to use CUDA acceleration, but that part of the software is clearly bugged. So after, I think, 20 or something attempts, I went in and I disabled the CUDA acceleration, and next time I rendered, went through smoothly with no issues at all. So apparently there was a bug with that. Now I know that I shouldn't have that enabled, at least. But it took me quite some time, and I hope that that was the cause of it. I really hope it was, but I've had issues like this before, where you think you solved it and it turns out you were just really lucky that it didn't crash that time. So that's why that I'm a bit in doubt whether Hello Dave will be out, because I haven't rendered anything since, and this will be the first render that I'm going to do after that. And Hello Dave has always been a very, very, very heavy process to render, because, well, full screen chroma keying takes a lot of time and takes a lot of computing power. So Hello Dave renders very, very slowly. So I hope it's going to be out. I mean, if this is out on Monday, clearly I'll resolve my rendering issues. If it's not, well, then I'll have to figure out what's going on. And that could also mean that maybe live streaming will be delayed, because I will probably focus on getting that to work rather than live streaming. But if everything works, and I'll be back on Tuesday, if this is out on Monday, we'll get to Tuesday on the 8th. What I think I'll do is the live stream will just have, I'll just see if I can get some people online, and we can just sit and have a casual chat about the focus feedback that Frontier has been giving about the Squadron update. So if you want my opinions on it, and some of the other guys on Discord, drop by on the live stream tomorrow. It is on YouTube. There's been a lot of people who've been following me on Twitch lately, and you're more than welcome to do that. I don't stream on Twitch. I have a Twitch account, just in case, but I've never streamed on Twitch. So live stream is of course on YouTube. It is gonna be 7 PM in-game time. So drop by the channel by then, and let's have a talk about what you think. It's also going to give you a chance to give your opinion on what you think about the Squadron update and the announcements. And if you just don't want to read the whole long forum thread Frontier's going to post, that's a chance to get the too long didn't read version of it read to you live, basically. So I think I'm going to call it for today. It's already been 15 minutes almost. So I hope you liked today's video. If you did, give a like down below. Remember to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And until next time, I will see you guys in space.